exclusively on The Vocal Minority.
Are you part of the silent majority? Or are you part of the vocal minority?
Motherfuckers, go.
Attention, please.
If America can be saved, and I don't know if it's too late, but it'll be through a radio show like this new kind.
This shit here feels like a whole entire world collapse.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers.
It's the vocal minority.
The revolution will be live.
Hey, what's good? It's your boy MC. Welcome to another episode of the Vocal Minority Report, your source for long-form commentary and conversations on culture, social justice, true crime, and black life in America. As always, you could have downloaded any podcast in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that. Make sure you check out the new and improved thevocalminorityreport.com for more info on this episode, daily news, archives, guest info, and much, much more. Also, I know you're on the gram, so do your boy a favor. Shoot over there and follow The Vocal Minority. It's the page. It's been active, but I haven't done much on it. But now we got that thing popping, so make sure you check us out there. Follow me on Instagram, The Vocal Minority. We've got a great show for you today. Going to be talking boycotting the NFL for real. We'll touch Drake versus Pusha T, although I think Drizzy may have been touched enough already. Kim K was at the White House this week talking prison reform with the president. I'll try to unpack that confusing statement and visit. There's been trouble in the sky on some Southwest flights recently. And we'll get into one of the most frustrating but kind of encouraging phenomena in this country, and that's wrongful convictions. We're going to talk about two recent exonerees. So great action-packed show. We'll take a quick break and be right back. It took me a while to realize I was running a small business. Some of the decisions I had to make about building a website, defining a social strategy, and marketing seemed so daunting. I really had no idea where to start. Luckily, if you're a real estate agent, mortgage banker, or broker, we've got a new sponsor with solutions to help you get started or update your current site or strategy. LenderConsultants.com provides a suite of powerful solutions for you to better connect with prospects and expand your brand. And if you're like me and you love a hookup, just for my listeners, I've got a deal for you. You can save 20% off their custom solutions by using the code NEWYEAR. Just go to LenderConsultants.com and use the code NEWYEAR for your 20% savings. I hate Facebook Messenger. Well, let me be more clear. I hate Facebook altogether, but Messenger is the worst. For one reason, I know it reads everything that I type, and it allows all kinds of people to bug me at all the time when they see that damn green light's on. But the other issue I have with it is that anyone can send you anything. And the other day I received a video message from a brother that I know I've never met or spoken to, and it said, "Send this to every black man you know." So, of course, I dragged that shit to the trash and shook my head as I tried to figure out why this cat would send me this video. And then I quickly moved on to something else. Fast forward to yesterday, though, my brother sends me the same damn video. So my immediate response is, I'm not watching a 6-minute video. I mean, I love my people and all, but that's a lot of time to be watching a video on my phone. But because I felt bad and it was my brother, I went ahead and watched the video, or at least the first minute, caught the essence of it. And basically what it was several black men giving their team affiliation and then putting a black shirt or showing a black T-shirt over it and saying they're going to black out the NFL. I didn't watch the full video, so I won't speak exactly for those brothers or the men behind it. But I do think it's something that is important, and I want to kind of piggyback off of it and continue the dialogue because it's definitely a larger conversation in it, and it's one that I've been trying to have for months, and it just so happens that the NFL went ahead and kept acting stupid, so here we go. You know, I wrote a piece about this on the thevocalminorityreport.com, just going over the decision, and not so much the decision because it's already been pretty played out, but it was more so about and how it should really come as no surprise and just kind of where we are today. You know, the language used in the policy is such an example of Jim Crow 2.0. It's ridiculous. Basically, they're saying stand proudly and ignorantly for a contrived post 9/11 Department of Defense paid for advertisement, or have your team face a fine, or keep your black ass in the locker room so we can have the networks exploit your absence and the commentators shame you publicly. What kind of choice is that for anyone in this country from their employer? Especially a black male being paid millions attempting to keep his job in a league where literally nothing is guaranteed. Well, almost nothing. So should we boycott the NFL because of its clear pandering to its base, which is clearly the base of this current administration that we should be raging against? Of course. But are we going to do it? Hell no. I say that not because I'm pessimistic necessarily, but because the level of coordination and commitment it would take seems rather daunting. For instance, to do this right, in my opinion, and make the NFL and those Americans that don't understand that there's nothing more patriotic than protesting oppression, is to further bring down the viewership numbers and truly impact their advertisers. I'll give you an example. It's the same one that Jamel Hill, formerly of ESPN, was suspended for, and that eventually, probably at least in part, led to her departure from the worldwide leader. You know, she said last October, "This play always works. Change happens when advertisers are impacted. If you feel strongly about JJ's," she's talking about Jerry Jones' statement, "boycott his advertisers." Then she followed up with saying, "If you strongly reject what Jerry Jones said, the key is his advertisers. Don't place the burden squarely on the players." You know, she's exactly right and hit the nail on the head. I would say that she said, you know, don't place the blame squarely on the players, but they certainly do bear some level of responsibility. But, you know, it's incumbent upon us as consumers to react and respond. And so any blackout, any protest, any boycott, to me, has to go much, much further, right? So since Jerry Jones is her target, and I'm always been a Cowboys fan, having been born and raised in Dallas, and not to mention that I'm convinced Jerry Jones and Donald Trump are way more similar than I had ever thought about, really. And I'm going to get in that into another episode to point out all those similarities and what's kind of really going on here. But check this out. Let's break this down. How deep would a boycott or blackout in the NFL really need to go to make a true impact? Okay. So the Dallas Cowboys list their official partners according to their website as Albertsons Market, which I believe has a partnership with Tom Thumb. So most of you people probably have that coverage in your area. Then there's Miller Lite. Miller Lite, of course, is a partner with Coors Light. So that's tons of operations there. There's Petit Jean Meats. Don't know what that is. Then there's AT&T, Ford, Dr. Pepper. They've partnered with one of the fastest growing cities in the country, Frisco, Texas. They own Legends Catering, which does the catering for the Yankees and several ballparks and events and stadiums out there. They've got more real estate than you can imagine. And if that's not a lot, I'm going to go ahead and just go to their website and list all these others that I can find just from their website. So just to fully show you the scale of how large this effort would need to be to make an impact, because their viewership is already down. So it's not like we can stop watching on Sundays and Thursdays and Mondays and really hit them where it hurts. I think we've got to dig a little deeper. So here's some more of their relationships and sponsors. You got American Airlines, Academy Sports and Outdoors, Bacardi. I hate to say them, though, because I've got a special relationship with them, but it is what it is. There's the clothing store Belk, Bank of America, Crown Royal, Dunkin' Donuts, Forest Park Medical Center here in Dallas, Fort Worth, Gatorade, the Gaylord Texan Hotel, General Electric, Hublot, whatever that is, Jack Daniels, Nationwide Insurance, Nike, New Era, Papa John's, Pepsi, Reliant Energy, Sony, United Healthcare, UPS, and Frito-Lay. Man, and you know there's got to be more partnerships, ventures, and associations, but you get the point. And this is just a small snapshot, considering this is only one of 32 NFL teams. So if enough is enough already, and we want to black this thing out, how far are we really willing to take it? Because I've got the distinct belief and feeling that we've been lulled to sleep by the dominant society that doesn't view us as equal citizens with the same rights as them, and nor do they think that we have the same reverence for this crazy-ass country that we live in. So what do we do, right? I think we have to have a real, true, coordinated effort and campaigns targeting each of those specific advertisers, sponsors that I just mentioned. I think we have to go through the proper channels. You've got organizations like Color of Change, there's a civil rights advocacy group. There's several others. What is the NAACP doing? Where is the response from Black America that is going to stop this blatant, I don't even know what a good word for it is, oppression, silencing? They are restricting the rights of their employees, of their partners, and that's a problem. And we've been silenced long enough. So, let's do something about this. This idea that rich white men can tell niggas to go hide in the locker room and address social issues on your own time, or any black person that says that, or any white guy, anybody that truly believes that is a fool, right? How can you say that? How can you say that? This society that we're living in is way too permissive of ridiculous bullshit, and we spend way too much time focusing on things that don't matter and having the same conversation. We're 4 months away from the start of the football season. The NFL puts it out without a vote, without a true normal vote they would have, no input from the Players Association. And by the time it starts, we're all going to forget about it, okay? So we've got to get to the point where we don't forget about it, where we don't all get excited when it comes to preseason, where we don't depend on the networks, because Fox, CBS, ESPN, NFL Network, they're all complicit. They're all complicit in this. When they show the gentleman not standing, they show the brothers not standing, they make such a big deal about it. That is having an adverse effect on what's happening to us. It's kind of like the Obama effect, where it makes white folks so angry to see black men do anything that they've got to react this way. And the only thing they can do is say, hey, you know what? We'll take our viewership and our dollars, because that's what matters, and we'll take it elsewhere. So I say, yes, let's do the same thing. We try to do it anyway. Let's act like they act. Let's stop watching it. But I'm fully endorsing a blackout of the NFL. Don't watch your team, anybody's team. And then let's figure out a way to really not get with these advertisers. Okay. These are some big name people. Most of you got your phones with AT&T. You fly American Airlines. Your insurance is through United Healthcare. You shop at Albertsons. I get it. But if we're going to take a stand, then let's take a stand. Revolution and reform has got to be the play. Has got to be the play. They don't believe us. They don't care about us. They think that we don't matter, and we got to show them that we do matter. Okay, we're more than a hashtag. Always have been. Most of y'all should have been born woke. Okay, fuck staying woke. You should have been born woke. No one should have to remind you. All right, let's get back to where we need to be. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. And let's make it happen. So stay tuned. I'm going to reach out to some people. We're going to figure out how we can do this coordinated effort. I'll go ahead and watch the rest of the 6-minute video so you don't have to. And I'm going to reach out to the pastor that has pop that off and see if I can't get him on the show. And then we're going to see what we can do over these next 4 months to truly make a stand. Because I truly believe that we should be out there in front of these practice facilities boycotting. We should be at the stadiums on Sunday. Let's pack this thing out. Let's have a coordinated effort, especially considering that 378 black Americans have died since Colin Kaepernick, OG, triple OG, Cap, first took a knee back in August of 2008. I'm going to say that one more time so it soaks in. 378 black Americans have been killed by police in less than 2 years since August of 2016 when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee. So you can talk about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee against Hillary. You can talk about motives. You can talk about everything else. But what we have to talk about is the reality of the things that are happening in this country, and that any movement that you're going to get behind has to have some weight behind it. So I know that I can't just talk about this and not deliver answers. So this is just a jump off point, but I got to bring this up and we got to keep talking about it so we know we can get to this effort. So let's take a quick little break and then we'll jump back into Drizzy and Pusha T. It took me an extra day to finally listen to what all the fuss was about between Drake and Pusha T. I knew there was beef that prompted Drake to release a diss track. And I know we was getting a whole lot of buzz and some really good reviews, but who cares, right? Well, apparently everyone else but your boy, because that shit went viral and took over the news cycle for at least a few days. And then most of that turned into awe and appreciation of Pusha T's response. And then folks had a dance on the grave of Drizzy. I wonder if he was buried in blackface, by the way. But no, I'm kidding, though, because I've always really been an advocate of Drake. I like to make the distinction between advocate and fan. But he's done enough that I would like, and so I could be considered a fan, or at least a fan light. But I've really found myself more times than not defending him because he gets so much hate. You know, I don't know if it's because he's light skinned or Canadian or both. I feel like, so what if he had ghostwriters? The boy's an actor who started rapping. Let that man live. You know, how many acclaimed actors write their own parts or scripts? Very few. But we commend them when they put on dynamic performances, or hell, even just keep us entertained. Why is Drake any different? And plus, they know how to make hits over in his camp. So you got to give him credit for that, right? Now, Pusha T, he's on a completely different level. He's a real rapper to me. And I don't mean that disrespectful to Drake, but I think there's a difference. I mean, when Eclipse came out, that album came out, what was that, like early 2000s? So my man's been around the game for a long time. He's 41 years old. That's a grown man, you know. He's grimy. He's thoughtful. Admittedly, over the last few years, I haven't heard much that he's done outside of some features, but I definitely know who my man is. And I know he's got that credibility. So to hear that he straight bodied Drake wasn't that big of a surprise until I actually listened to it, though. I mean, he went on some dark web, WikiLeaks, like real dossier type stuff on Canada's finest. It kind of reminded me of when Remy Ma went for Nicki Minaj last year. She called her brother a child molester and went super personal. But I like stuff like that. I like it when you're going to go in on somebody. You might as well hit them where it hurts and expose them if they want to play with you, right? Let them know that you don't come here. You ain't for no games. Like you didn't come here to play with these fools. So I appreciate that. All right, so let's address the two most glaring revelations from the Pusha T. So Drake's got a child with a French porn star. Okay, like whatever. Doesn't move me too much. And then there's the picture of Drake in blackface. Now, that one is a little different. And I think it's kind of just how he looks in that picture. You know, that one looks like, he looks like the star of an OVO minstrel show. So that one, you know, may need a little bit of explaining to do, which he tried to. I mean, he didn't address getting his ass handed to him, but he definitely had to address the blackface because, you know, music is music, but that image, though, that image will stay with folks, right? So he had to address that. I won't bore you with the statement. I'm sure you probably read it. But in short, you know, he and his boy were working on a project that explored race and representation or lack thereof in Hollywood, right? So, you know, I can dig that because that's super important. And it's a very clever response to a situation that is a little tough to get out of. And I don't want to bring up skin tone in this argument, but I just did because it's a very touchy conversation in our community, but I wonder how much that may have to do with this. It's something to think about, right? And I think it bears the question as well. Would he have worn blackface if he wasn't a light-skinned mixed cat? Imagine if he was a maybe more authentic cat from Virginia with some age and wisdom. But I do know after Drake's statement, of course, Pusha T was on the radio because he's been everywhere now. And he responded saying, "I don't believe it at all. You are silent on all black issues, Drake, with a huge platform." So what do you guys think? Do you agree with that? I mean, Drake had people crying over the God's Plan video and his generosity, but is that enough? You know, what's his responsibility to the people? You know, I don't have a good answer for that. You know, I kind of falls somewhere in the middle. His responsibility is as much as he wants to put on himself. But personally, do I think he could do more? Of course, but that could be said of anyone. It could be said of me. So the standard has to be high on how we represent and handle and address Black issues. But that's also a little bit of low-hanging fruit by Pusha T, but it needs to be addressed. All right, so let me know what you guys think. Hit me up on Twitter @VocalReport. You can send an email to vocalreport@gmail.com. On Facebook and Instagram @thevocalminority. Pusha T is up right now. We'll see what Drake is going to do over the next couple of days, the weekend, how long it's going to take him to recover, if he responds at all. Definitely Pusha T is up right now, and he told the Breakfast Club this week that he may not be done. So I'm interested to see what happens in the future. I'll be more on top of it going forward. All right, quick pause for the calls, and we'll come back and we'll talk Melania 2.0. I mean, Kim K and her being all up at the White House. Didn't she look like the unhappy wife of an evil dictator in that picture? Okay, all right, let me take this break and we'll get in that in a minute. Southwest Airlines made headlines this week, but not for their zero bag fees or kind of funny flight crew. They had two separate incidents that happened at the gate and on the plane. Let's start with the craziest one first. A female passenger, Ellie Shariat, was flying from Vegas to Philadelphia when she started live tweeting about a fellow passenger, a man sitting right next to her who was allegedly watching porn on his iPad without headphones and with his penis in full view. She also said that, and I quote, his body had started shaking in the throes of his his body started shaking in the throes of his orgasmic bliss. I'm so disgusted. Me too, sister. Me too. No pun intended. Is this not the craziest story you've ever heard, though? Doesn't it beg so many questions? I'm really on this kick where I'm not trying to be judgmental or victim blame, but damn, Ellie, you're making it hard on me. I mean, for me. I mean, I don't know. Either way, it's probably a little too close. But really, how do you let what she described as a 5-hour assault go on? None of the crew saw or intervened, not even one passenger. I've seen some really bold people on planes that aren't afraid to speak their mind and voice their displeasure. So this is just so surprising to me. Same thing with the flight crew. They never walked up or down the aisle and heard a Sama man. They stop planes and call the police for all kinds of things. Way more trivial and less offensive than masturbating while watching porn on a plane. Kind of gives new meaning to snakes on a plane, doesn't it? All right, I need a rim shot. Actually, that sounds gross considering this story. Anyway, I wonder what he was watching. Did I mention that she was tweeting directly at Southwest staff while this was happening? They, of course, advised her to alert the flight crew. Makes sense, right? Like I said, I'm trying to cut her a little bit of slack here, but she said she was too afraid to do so I've got to take her at her word. But I feel if you can live tweet, then you can press the call button, talk to another passenger, discreetly get some help, scream, I don't know. I feel like you're not completely powerless in that case, but maybe I'm wrong. And then to add even more unbelievable things to the story, she also claimed in another tweet that as the man was leaving the plane, quote, he looked at me, told me I hoped I enjoyed the show, and patted my head, and then left. Who is this guy? Miggs from Silence of the Lambs? Shariat has filed a police report and the FBI is investigating. She told TMZ that a supervisor on the ground when she landed offered her a dinner voucher for her trouble. Wow. Luckily, though, Southwest decided not to be outdone by itself, so they offered up another case and bit of controversy this week and decided to move from the sexual misconduct place over to the race issue. University of California, Berkeley women's head basketball coach Lindsey Gottlieb tweeted, I'm appalled that after approximately 50 times flying with my 1-year-old son, the ticket counter personnel told me I had to prove that he was my son despite having his passport. She said it was because we have different last names. My guess is because we have a different skin color. Okay, so at first blush, this one doesn't seem as cut and dry based on the coach's tweet. But maybe it does, right? Seems a little subjective. Apparently the gate agent in Denver, hold on, let me go on a little quick rant real quick about gate agents because aren't they the worst sometimes? I mean, they act like they're the most important people in the damn airport. They had like their St. Peter or bouncer at the most exclusive nightclub ever. I mean, I think we've all had some really odd encounters with gate agents about some bullshit. But back to Denver and back to this kid. Coach Gottlieb, who was traveling with her black fiance and child, had to prove her maternity by showing the agent a Facebook post, at least in part because she and the baby didn't have the same last name. Did I mention she was with her baby daddy at the time? He and the baby have the same last name, and he showed that information to the gate agent, but it didn't work. The coach told CNN that being pushed to further prove that he was my son felt disrespectful and motivated by more than just concern for his well-being. Of course, because she brought it to Twitter, everyone had an opinion, many of which being critical of her, saying it was a safety concern. And to those people, I would say, shut the hell up. Including Christy Teigen, who's John Legend's wife. She jumped in to apparently defend the airline, saying that airlines have asked me to do this too with my daughter. Once I learned it's a precaution for the very real threat of child trafficking, I stopped being exasperated with it. Now I'm kind of worried when they don't ask. All right. So I agree, human trafficking is real. Hell, I've been in the airport and seen in the bathroom, hell, in the men's restroom, they have signs, saying if you're a victim of human trafficking, call this number or let somebody in the airport know. So it's definitely a real thing. But as someone who is a parent of a mixed child and who's had people ask me, is that my child? Never to get on an airplane, and never have I had to go so far as to prove that she is in fact my child, but it certainly happened to me before, and I know it's happened to others. So screw you and your safety precaution standpoint, because really, I don't know what it is. I mean, is it racism? Is it ignorance? Do both of those things just lead to a lack of professionalism, which can create the look of racism? And I'm using that term in the most general sense here because I think we need a better descriptor for these type of issues that come up. This case seems pretty clear, though. You've got a party of 3, 2 adults, 1 black, 1 white, and a cute light-skinned baby. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this one out. Southwest issued a statement to CNN saying that certain international flights require them to verify additional paperwork for those traveling with a minor. Domestic travel does not require airlines to match the last names of a child and their guardian, they said. So, Gottlieb was flying domestically from Denver to Oakland, so you decide, right? All right, moving on. So what did you guys think of the reality TV star summit at the White House this week? So apparently, and this comes as a huge surprise to me, but maybe it shouldn't considering his father is an ex-con, but Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, is responsible for setting up this meeting between Trump and Kim Kardashian because one of his top priorities apparently is prison reform. Who knew, right? Kim K has been on this topic since last October when she first heard the story of Alice Marie Johnson, a mother who has been in prison for 20 years after getting involved in selling coke to provide for her son. She's one of many serving life sentences without parole for a nonviolent drug crime. Kardashian's goal is to ask Trump to grant her clemency, which is what she tweeted after their meeting. She said, "I would like to thank President Trump for his time this afternoon. It is our hope that the president will grant clemency to Miss Alice Marie Johnson, who is serving a life sentence for a first-time nonviolent drug offense." I really dig the fact that she's becoming an advocate for reform and highlighting individual injustices. But I'm just a bit thrown off that her approach is to lobby a president who handpicked and directed his attorney general to be tougher on crime, drugs, and those who deal drugs. Trump has argued publicly that people who traffic drugs like Alice Marie Johnson should be executed. I mean, he didn't say her specifically, but I mean, she was a trafficker. And that terrible little man, Jeff Sessions, has urged federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in cases where there's high levels of drug and lots of activity. And they've rescinded the Obama-era memo that asked prosecutors to avoid charges for low-level drug offenders that could trigger these lengthy mandatory minimums. This is a move that effectively told prosecutors to pursue the harshest possible punishments for even low-level drug crimes, according to Vox. All right, so back to Kushner and his push for prison reform. Remember when I said his daddy was in prison? I'm assuming you all know the story, but it's so crazy. I like hearing it and I like telling it. So here's the abridged version, right, as I remember it. Charlie Kushner is a real estate developer in Jersey. He's a big-time Democratic donor who has some questionable accounting practices. He attempts to extort his sister's husband while he's being investigated. Yes, his brother-in-law. And he sets him up by paying a prostitute for his brother-in-law, recording it, and then having the tape delivered to his sister at a family function. I think it was a birthday party, in fact. So former U.S. Attorney, failed presidential candidate, and governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, prosecuted Charlie, and he was sentenced and served time at a prison in Georgia, I believe. Now, this is when Jared, who was in college at the time, and the story goes, he would fly and see his daddy every week down there. So is Jared Kushner into prison reform? You bet he is, but does he give a damn about drug offenses and sentencing? Not even close. His agenda regarding reform is focused on improving conditions in prison and encouraging more rehabilitation programs for inmates, which is definitely needed and ordinarily would be applauded. But any conversation about injustice and reform, which is a good one to have, with this president who is so tough on crime and has an attitude where he literally hates drugs and alcohol, I don't know what you're doing here, right? So kudos to Kim, and fuck you, Kushner and Trump. Oh, and Kanye too. I know Kim's getting a lot of criticism, so that's why I'm giving her a little bit of kudos because, hell, I even clowned her for the way she looked in that pic that Trump tweeted. But, celebrities have a long history of affecting change. Got the West Memphis 3 to name a case, and there's been others. But not everyone agrees with this, though. In response to a Vox article on the meeting by German Lopez, Kristen Clark, who's the president of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, wrote an email saying, President Trump's reported meeting with Kim Kardashian West to discuss prison reform makes light of one of the biggest crises that we face in our country today. Prison reform is a complex issue that requires expertise and knowledge of where knowledge of some of the greatest racial disparities lie. I'm not aware that Ms. Kardashian West brings the requisite record of experience to tackle these issues on a national scale. In short, this proposed meeting is outrageous and makes clear that this administration does not deem prison reform a real priority. Ouch, right? See, I felt the same thing when I first saw that. But, I wasn't as harsh, but I'm not as learned in the law as Ms. Clark, obviously. All right, so let's move on from Kim and her visit and talk about what Trump actually did over the last couple of weeks regarding pardons, because I was shocked to hear that he had pardoned the famed boxer and childhood hero of mine, Jack Johnson. I loved his story when I was a kid. Got a big, powerful black man who didn't give a fuck about what the white man thought of him and purposely antagonized them by dating their women and beating their butts in the ring and making a lot of money while doing it. He famously violated the Mann Act when he carried that white girl and probably many others across state lines. I wonder if that's what Trump's talking about when he refers to fixing our broken infrastructure. So last week, or I think it was about 10 days ago, in front of Lennox Lewis, Deontay Wilder, the heavyweight champ, Rocky Balboa, Sly Stallone, and one of Johnson's great grandchildren, this man issued a presidential pardon. It kind of sickens me like it does to hear him being involved in prison reform talks or the off chance that he would grant clemency to a black great-grandmother for running a multi-million-dollar dope ring. Is it pandering? Is it something else? Shortly after the meeting with Kim K, he issued another pardon to Dinesh D'Souza, who had been described as a professional troll and conservative commentator and filmmaker. Now, his presidential pardoning power is coming into question after the 5 people he's pardoned so far. They are the despicable Joe Arpaio, former Maricopa County Sheriff, Christian Saucier, a Navy soldier who took classified photos and destroyed evidence, and then tried to blame the Obama Department of Justice for using him as a scapegoat to take the heat off of Hillary Clinton in the email scandal. Scooter Libby, who was an advisor to Dick Cheney and was convicted of perjury, lying to FBI agents, and obstruction. And I didn't mention Dinesh D'Souza's crimes, but he pled guilty to 1 felony count of making illegal contributions in the name of others after a campaign finance investigation regarding the New York Senate race. I just heard he's talking of pardoning Martha Stewart and Rod Blagojevich. Former Attorney General Eric Holder said that Trump is trying to send a message with these pardons and that could backfire. He said that message is about the Russia investigation and to others like Trump who get in trouble. This makes me really irritated, especially with the Obama administration and Holder, because they could have done so much more when it came to clemency and directing the Justice Department. Not to say they didn't do anything, but what we have right now in office is a man who steams forward and protects his base. Why didn't Obama pardon low-level drug offenses, nonviolent stuff, and weed before he left? Right or wrong, Trump's appointees and rollbacks have helped to advance his agenda when it comes to immigration, taxes, pardons, crime, schools, the EPA, gun control, all kinds of stuff. So what's that saying? Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's what we have here. Corrupted power. But it's getting things done, though. Back to Holder and why Trump is pardoning, how this could backfire. He said, if you've been pardoned, you no longer have your Fifth Amendment rights. So let's say that Bob Mueller comes to question you about the Russia investigation. You can no longer invoke the Fifth because you've been pardoned of that crime, which is really interesting and good to know. The New York Times warns that these pardons could completely ruin the system because it puts those with wealth and influence at the top of the system, and that's not what it's set up for. But, luckily these things could benefit the Mueller investigation, even though I think that is a big much ado about nothing, a lot of pomp and circumstance to fill news cycles, because I don't know what true outcome this investigation can really have. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Hey, I know everybody listening likes free stuff, or at least I think you do. And if you want a free t-shirt, that's a Vocal Minority Report t-shirt, head over to thevocalminorityreport.com, join our mailing list. I'll send you a shirt. And if you go to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review, I'll send you a shirt. Just send me a screenshot. You can email me at vocalreport@gmail.com, a screenshot. Leave a review, sign up for the mailing list. Won't spam you, just be updates, information on the show, some special exclusives and giveaways. Check it out, hook your boy up. I have about 20 shirts to give away, so first come, first serve. Just send me an email or join the mailing list, thevocalminorityreport.com. Okay, so now I want to get into two positive stories before we close the show. There were two men that were exonerated here in the last few weeks, one in Dallas and one in Philadelphia, both after serving more than a decade for crimes they didn't commit. Let's start with Dante Patterson, who's released from prison last month after serving 11 years for the murder of his friend Antoine Jackson in front of a Philly corner store. He claimed that prosecution hid his evidence, and I'd been really interested to see what new Philadelphia DA Larry Krasner was going to do. I know before he was elected, he was on the Undisclosed podcast with Robbie Chowdhury and Colin Miller, and I forgot the other one's name. But anyway, so they were excited because they had broken down several cases of wrongful convictions in Philadelphia and the history of the police, corrupt police and corrupt Philadelphia DA. So Krasner was elected back in November and ran as a candidate of change and reform. He vowed to repair the city's broken criminal justice system, and his office accused their predecessors of misconduct, hiding information, and mishandling Patterson's case. They called for all charges to be dropped, and Dante Patterson was released on May 16th. Patterson had always maintained his innocence and never gave up hope. All right, I plan to go into some more details of this case in a future episode, but I wanted to drop that little nugget for you now. And then everybody knows it's graduation season, right? Heck, I just went to my 8th graders graduation, which I'll never understand why you graduate from kindergarten or elementary school or junior high, but it is what it is. She looked beautiful, and I understand what it means to people. So I can't imagine not being able to go or missing precious moments that I've had for her and my 7-year-old. But plenty of men and women who are in jail, in prison for crimes they didn't commit. And this week in Dallas, one of the men came home after spending 17 years in prison for a murder that was actually committed by a now executed cop killer. And the kicker is, folks knew for years because that man confessed. He actually admitted to the 01 killings that Quentin Alonzo was convicted of. He admitted that in 01 before his own trial, and then he confessed again before his 2015 execution. But because of attorney-client privilege and the wheels of justice moving ever so slowly, Quentin Alonzo suffered for almost 20 years in prison. Prosecutors and his attorneys fought hard for him to be released this week in time for him to see his daughter graduate. So again, I'll break down this case as well with way more of these crazy details in an upcoming episode. But exonerations, wrongful convictions, like I said earlier at the top of the show, it's a very strange and unfortunate phenomena, but at least these men and women are being let out of jail. I mean, do you know that there's a podcast called Wrongfully Convicted, hosted by Jason Flom? And literally every week he talks to an exoneree. Every week he talks to an exoneree. And most of these people, I would say, were in prison for greater than 10 years, just like these two brothers I just mentioned. So we got to do something more. Well, folks, that's it for this one. A couple stories of freedom. You know, to me, these stories of wrongful conviction and exoneration show America as it really is, extremely flawed, but full of hope and promise. As always, thanks for downloading. Check me out on Twitter at Vocal Report. Instagram, it's the Vocal Minority. Or not, it is space the Vocal Minority on Instagram. And that's the Facebook page is The Vocal Minority Report. Website, The Vocal Minority Report. Don't forget to leave that review on Apple Podcasts. Sign up for the mailing list. Subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'm MC. Some of the music was provided by my man Shot Right. All power to the people. Peace.